Here are 3 true scary stories from Reddit. The links to the stories are in the description below. Enjoy. Number 1. A few years ago, I used to work at a Waffle House in a college town, and coming across weirdos wasn't that unusual. To start off, there are only 2 restaurants there that were open 24/7, and I worked the 3rd shift at the Waffle House. Sometimes when a person's car would break down, the police would drop them off at one of these 2 places. They weren't supposed to, so they would drop them off within walking distance and not actually right out front, like some shitty loophole or something. So one night, I was working with a cook and another waitress that I'll call Mark and Cassie. Around 11 p.m., this old guy wandered into the lobby carrying a little bag. First off, we don't usually get older customers after 8 p.m. or so. Second, this dude's creepy as hell. He starts off by telling us how his car broke down on the highway and that the police dropped him off in the parking lot next door. I felt bad for him because it's the middle of the night, he's not from around here and he has no money. I poured him a cup of coffee and didn't charge him. My coworkers were usually on drugs, so I assumed free coffee wasn't going to get me fired. This is when the guy started talking my ear off. I could barely get a word in edgewise, which is difficult since I'm usually the talker. He talked about what happened to him and then starts trying to sell us the tools he had in his little bag. Of course we say no, but he just keeps asking. He then starts wandering in and out of the store. The first time he tried to re-enter, Mark, who's ex-military, searched his bag to make sure he didn't have any weapons because he had started to raise some eyebrows. There's nothing but tools in the bag and we felt a bit safer. He's allowed back in and I kept talking with him. Mark and Cassie had gone to the other side of the store and continued to watch. Keep in mind, this guy is literally the only person in here other than us 3. We don't start getting people until 1:30 in the morning when everyone leaves the bars. He prattled on about a lot of weird things. I tell him I'm interested in studying prisons and he tells me the best way to do that is to get arrested. He then goes on about how he used to be in prison, but he never says why. He was really starting to make me nervous. I took out a pen and started to draw him, just in case the dude decided to murder us. There's a little wall where we usually write out our customer receipts, and I was able to draw him without him noticing. Not that it mattered since he was looking straight ahead while talking to me. Around 1 a.m. we started getting customers and he continued talking to me no matter where I was. He didn't raise his voice or anything, he just kept talking at the same level, even while I was taking care of other customers. At this point, I started to think that the guy was schizophrenic and wanted nothing to do with him. I was afraid he might cause a scene. Then, out of nowhere, he started insulting the customers. He told one kid that he's fat and that he needed to lose weight. He then turned his attention to a family and said, "Your wife and kids are fine, but why are you so ugly?" We decided he had to go. Mark tells him he has to leave as we've warned him several times to leave the other customers alone. Mark tells him to leave or we'll call the cops. The guy started yelling at us and glared at me. He asked why he should leave, and he eventually does. He comes back a half an hour later and we had to kick him out again for harassing the customers. He didn't come back anymore that night and figured he must have found a way home or had contacted someone. I finished around 7 a.m. and walked home. I live above the bars downtown and it's about a 30-minute walk. Along the way, I had seen the old guy and darted behind a building and took the back way home. I didn't think much of it because, hey, it's a small town and there's not a lot of places to go. I had to work again the next day, so I got all my chores done and went to sleep. An hour before work, Waffle House called me and my coworker Kevin tells me the old guy had come in every couple of hours looking for me. I'm a 23-year-old female, so they're worried about what he wanted. I called my friend Jason and told him why I needed a ride and he drove me to work. I get in and ask what's been going on. Apparently, this guy had been in at least 10 times asking to talk to me. He never said why, he just said he wanted to talk to me. Now I'm on edge because I have no idea what this guy wanted. Is this 60-year-old guy pissed off I didn't defend him when he was kicked out? Is he asking for me just because I told him my name? Or is there something else? Surprisingly, for the first few hours of my shift, we didn't see him. But he eventually came in and ignored me. I'm super confused, but I keep an eye on him. I've also brought along some pepper spray. Before long, we kicked him out again for harassing the customers. It's very confusing for me. He asked for me all day, but then ignored me when he came in. After we'd kicked him out, he didn't come back. When my shift ended, my friend asked if I needed a ride, and I tell him no. The guy has left and hasn't come back, so I'm good. Well, that's what I thought until I saw him walking towards me after work. He yelled out for me and started coming at me, but I ran into another building that I knew where all the exits were. I snuck out one of the back exits before this guy could find me. Thank God I know the town way better than he did. I still had no idea what he wanted, but I wasn't taking any chances. I headed home using the back alleys and side streets. I called work and let them know what had happened and asked for the next few days off. They agreed. They later go on to tell me that the guy had kept coming in over the course of several days. They finally had called the police and he was taken away. I still have no idea what his plans were, but creepy old guy, let's not meet again. Number 2. I had a job vacancy at our company. I'm the head of HR and conduct all the interviews. One day I had an interview planned and was waiting for the guy to show up. When he arrived, I invited him up to my office and waited for him at the top of the stairs. He was young and dressed in a tracksuit. The problem was that he had emailed me the day before asking what the dress code was and if he could have some advice about interview attire. I had informed him to come smartly dressed. I said hello and he just stopped and stared at me. Before asking if there were any men to interview him, I said no, I am the interviewer, to which he simply replied, "Oh, I would just rather have spoken to a man, you know." I point blank ignored this on purpose and invited him into the office to start the interview. He then proceeds to tell me that he's been fired from every job he's had and it was never his fault, stopping only to tell me that my hair was beautiful. He stared in silence at me for a good 10 seconds and then carried on about his other jobs and how all his bosses had issues with him, but it was 100% not his fault. When the interview ended and he was on his way out, he lit a cigarette inside the building. I rushed him to get him out of the building, to which he told me I was being dramatic. He then said, "It's not like I'm gonna burn the bin down like I did the last place." One of my coworkers that worked on the level below me was outside smoking as he left and had said hi to him. After finishing his cigarette, the coworker comes up to my office and asked me why I was so rude to this guy. Shocked, I asked what he meant. Apparently, as the guy was leaving, he told my coworker that I had threatened him in order to get him out of the interview. He then said that I had told him, "I don't employ people who are male." I obviously messaged him the day after, informing him that he had been unsuccessful in getting the job, but thanks for coming in, blah 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 blah. That's when the phone calls started. This guy would ring the office 20 times a day at least, asking if he had been given the position. Every time he was told no. After a while, I had stopped answering his calls, so he began leaving voicemails, not asking about the job, but just laughing into the phone. He continued doing this for a while. It's now been 2 days since the last message. Hopefully it's because he got bored and moved on to the next employer. Anyway, crazy job seeker, I really would not like to meet you again. Number 3. I'm a 24-year-old male. I've been working the third shift at a manufacturing facility for the past year. It's my first experience in manufacturing, and it's taught me a lot of lessons. I gained an appreciation for having acquired a hard work ethic after many years of working in fast food. I'm not going to say the name of the company I work for, but we're owned by a tool company that's pretty much a household name. If it isn't yet, it will be within the next 5 to 10 years, but I digress. We've been on a mandatory overtime for months and months, working the third shift 6 days a week. It sucks, but I have to admit, this place has grown on me. There's your typical factory workers that are employed here. the fat white chick that talks like she's black, the old materials handler that's a former deadhead who's worked here for 30 years, the crazy chick that starts rumors about people doing meth, and an older woman who treats everyone like they're her child. There's the Chinese lady that feeds our entire shift once a week, and there's even the biker who sneaks into the bathroom for a bump of coke every hour, and the guy from the hood who tries to sell you hookers on payday. You get the picture. We're your typical American manufacturing workplace, full of crazies. But there's this one guy in particular, whom I had this sneaking suspicion was completely nuts. There's just something about him. He started a few months back. He looked like a very, very dirty, gigantic teddy bear, and he was extremely overweight. He sweated profusely even when he was doing a sit-down assembly job, to the point where sweat was pouring off of him, soaking his clothes and dripping onto the floor. At the start of every Monday, he'd bring in grocery bags full of very nasty food, and would leave them in the fridge all week. Also, everything he ate would be completely smothered with yellow mustard. I mean literally everything he ate, from hot dogs and burgers to potato salad and mac and cheese. I've even seen him dip potato chips in generic yellow mustard. We called him Pastrami. He got the nickname because people on my shift said he always smelled like lunch meat. When Pastrami first got hired here, he was trained by a buddy of mine, so he came and sat by us at break. I was turned off by him initially because, aside from being very boring in conversations, he'd constantly bring up politics. He was very conservative and would often bash Sanders, whom I was a big supporter of. I didn't discuss politics at work or in general anymore, so this was a huge turnoff for me. We'd sit by the hood dude who tried to sell people hookers, and eventually, Pastrami got sick of hearing his dirty talk every day and stopped sitting by us. He started sitting by this one lady who sat alone, the motherly type I mentioned above. Shortly after this, she found someone else to sit by because she really got sick of the guy latching onto her for conversation every day. He then started sitting across the room, facing directly towards me, so I pretended to be on my cell phone and had the suspicion that this guy was staring me down. After about a week of this, I decided to turn on the phone camera, see if this guy was actually staring at me. He was, for the entire lunch break. During this, he was also grunting loudly and occasionally doing yoga stretches, but he never took his eyes off me. This went on for the entire summer. Every day, lunchtime and both breaks, he would stare me down and I could see it from my camera. Sometimes I felt like a creep watching him back, but something about this guy was just off. At some point, it started getting really weird. First of all, he works in the opposite building. Our buildings were connected. Yet he started parking on my side, particularly next to me. When I'd pull up, he would pull up immediately after, every time, and every night he'd be glaring at me as he pulled in. I usually arrived to work pretty early, and I noticed he'd be walking in when I got there. I'd wait in my car and light up a cigarette. By the time I finished it and walked in, he'd be waiting in the hallway where he'd clock in, sometimes doing nothing, sometimes adjusting stuff in his huge backpack he always lugged around, always grunting and sighing very loudly as he's doing it, and he'd always get up and look towards me and follow me in, and greet me as I was walking in. It was as if he was waiting for me. Anytime I saw this guy, anywhere in the shop, he'd be staring at me, waiting for me to make eye contact. At the slightest eye contact, he'd try to strike up a conversation. Eventually, towards the end of the summer, all of this came to an end. He made a couple of friends and stopped talking to me. But this is when it gets even weirder. I heard a weird story from the guy who sells hookers. He told me that Pastrami told some people on his side that he got caught masturbating at his last job and that's why he got fired. I wasn't surprised at all when I heard this. However, this guy's kind of unreliable and tells a lot of tall tales and smokes crack. I didn't know if the story was real or not. I know everybody on my shift pretty well by now, so I start to ask around about this guy. Pastrami's last job was fixing airplanes. Turns out, he told a bunch of women on my shift that at his last job, A plane ended up crashing that he had fixed and got fired for it. But that's not what he told the men. He told some people that he got fired for beating off. He told others they caught him watching porn. He told a couple of people that he was both beating off and watching porn. He told one guy that he was fired for sexual harassment because he groped a female coworker. No one really knows what the real story is for sure, but according to all the men he's told these varying stories to, he seemed almost proud, like he was bragging. Everybody on my shift is talking about this guy now. Everybody's saying that they thought he was a big-time creep since he started working there, and now their suspicions are confirmed. I'm going to be putting in my 2 weeks very soon. I got a job that works with my school schedule. As much as I hate this place, I'm going to miss it dearly and miss all of the crazy third shifters that I worked with. They've become like a second family to me. I'm pretty quiet and keep to myself for the most part, and none of these people realize how much they meant to me. There's many people who I'll keep in contact with, except Pastrami. I hope he gets fired for everyone else's sake, and I hope I never see him again. After I leave, Pastrami, let's not meet. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time.